Well, good Monday evening, ladies. How are you today?
Hello. Fine. How are
Hello.
you?
I'm very good. Wonderful. Well, I am Sarah B. NWV, and we are here at Monday with the Mountain Mamas. Thank you all who are joining live. Thanks to you that are on the replay. Listen, folks, I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, and then we're just jumping right in because we have 1 week from tomorrow until Election Day. So, Susan, why don't you introduce yourself first, and then we'll go to Debbie and Nikki last.
Hey, everybody. I'm Susan Perry. I'm a candidate for the House of Delegates in the 24th District, and the 24th District includes part of Logan County, part of Boone County, and a little tiny precinct in Wyoming County. And so if you're in those areas, hey, hope you'll vote for me. And if you're not in those, hey, I hope you'll vote for my sisters here on Mountain Mamas.
Hi, I'm Debbie Carroll, and I'm running for District 62, which is the northern part of Berkeley County. In my district, there has never been a woman to win this district ever. So I'm hoping to be the first. Right now, there are 100 members in the West Virginia House of Delegates, and only 16 are women. We need better representation than that. So I hope you'll vote for me. Thank you.
Nikki, unmute yourself first there.
Hi, Nikki Ardman here, candidate for House of Delegates in the 38th District, and that is Eastern Putnam County and Western Kanawha County. And I'm happy to be of service. Win or lose, I'm here to be of service.
I love that spirit. And let me just say, Nikki, if you don't mind me saying, because I think most people know, when was your surgery?
Last week.
So let me just say, if you're on here and you're a voter and you don't think women can multitask, I mean, she's a teacher, not just a science teacher, had surgery, is a candidate, and is still joining us this evening. So kudos to Nikki, right?
Thank you.
And all of you have been campaigning and not going door to door, socially distanced, of course, being safe. We have a lot of issues that we're going to talk about. Oh, I see DL. DL is here. Look at her in her Halloween. I love it.
I was thinking it was time for everyone to ask, which candidate are you voting for? Actually, this is my baby, Holly Gale, and she's just up for trick or treat. So we went out and made a Mountain Mama video earlier on, so I kept my hat on. But I shall take it off now, and we'll get that ready to go. But yes, trick or treat, October 31st, last day to early vote. So I hope people aren't going to be tricked into voting for the wrong candidate, because Mountain Mamas know how to treat people right. But I'll just sit back and remind people that you all are speaking for yourselves and seeing what y'all have to say.
Yeah, that is the beauty of Mondays with Mountain Mamas and with all of the candidates that are joining us, and we hope to have a few more. Again, we're 1 week from the election, so a lot of people are out speaking or on other engagements. So we hope that they'll be able to pop in. But the one thing is, we are all the candidates are different. They agree on many things. They disagree on some things. But the wonderful thing about all of them is they support one another. And they support each other through these campaigns. And many of them, once they were elected in 2018 they've supported each other while serving. So we are so grateful. If you don't mind, Susan, I want to address, do you want to talk about the flyer that went out or no?
No.
Okay. So, well, first of all, how are you guys feeling about the campaigns? Nikki, I love what you said earlier about, you're proud to serve, you're happy to serve whether you win or not. I think that's great. How are you feeling about your campaign, especially after having to have surgery in the process?
It sort of took the back seat. not because I wanted it to, but because I was shipped out of West Virginia. There were no rooms in Charleston or Huntington or surrounding areas. And so they took me by ambulance to Pikeville, Kentucky. And I had no cell service there. I had no way to let anyone know where I was, what was going on. I just knew I was there, and I was in a lot of pain and happy to be under the care of the people there.
Oh, good. Well, I know a lot of people were still supporting you and getting the word out, and a lot of prayers went up for you. So we're just glad to see you here tonight and looking healthy.
Oh, thank
Susan, how are things on your campaign trail?
Well, they're really busy. Down here, I'm known as the Queen of the Honkin' Wave.
Wear it proudly, here.
That's right. Oh, you got a crown?
I do. I don't know where I put it. Darn it. It's a tiara, really.
Well,
I'll give it to you soon.
We've been doing honkin' waves, and we don't do them just at the large intersections or along the large roadways. We go into the neighborhoods and the communities to do our honkin' waves because we want everybody to know that we know where those neighborhoods are. We know where those little towns are. And we see them and we hear them, and people come out sometimes and socially distance and stop in their cars and talk to us about what their concerns are. And it's a great way for me as a candidate to be able to learn what's going on in those counties.
And people do like to know that you're paying attention and that you're seeing them and they're being heard. What about you, Debbie?
Oh, we're doing all kinds of things. We are doing the honkin' waves as well, and they're so much fun. All those people just rooting and blowing those horns just makes you feel good. We've sent out thousands of postcards, and I've got yard signs all over the place. It feels so good because I've had complete strangers contact me and thank me for running and tell me that they are so glad that they read my information and they got to know what I was here for and why. And they're so appreciative, and it just feels so good to have them reach out and let me know that they're standing behind me 100%. So
Absolutely. Well, I just thank you. Before we get into some of the meat issues, first, thank you for having the courage to run for office. This is not easy. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of time, and you got to have thick skin because there's some things that are said that are just outright not true about you. And then there's things that are said that just make you want to scratch your head and say, what? So thank you for running and for caring enough about West Virginia to run. And as Debbie, you pointed out, we only have 16 women in the House of Delegates. Or yes, 16, right?
mm-hmm. That's right.
We have the lowest female representation in state legislature in the entire United States. So just when you think it couldn't get, we couldn't get to another list, here we are. We're on another list. So let's talk about some issues. We're going to try to get Barbara on here. There she is. Susan, hi, Delegate Fleshauer, our resident delegate here this evening.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful. I want to ask each of you a question as we move on. And this is to our new candidates. And I'll start with you, Susan. Why did you decide to run for office?
I decided to run for office because I've been involved in state government for a number of years in a variety of different roles. I served in the judiciary. I served in the executive branch. But the legislature is really where a lot of the rubber meets the road as far as us having just laws and fair laws and laws that are equally, treat people equally. And so I thought if this was going to be the last big thing that I do, because I'm retired now from my other careers, then I want to do this. I want to make sure that we as a state have good laws, because my son, maybe grandchildren will live here one day, and I want to make sure that this is the best West Virginia that we can possibly leave for the next generation.
Yes, bravo. Nikki, talk to us.
Well, my influence mostly comes from public school since I've been a teacher since '94. And what I've seen in the trends in my students and their families and communities, if we continue those trends, West Virginia, I don't think we'll make it. The opioid crisis has reached into our public schools and has infested our public school systems. But not only that, we're losing young people from our state because they don't see many opportunities here, and that's just simply the truth of it. Not to bash anyone who's in office, but we really need people who have been in connection with these communities and with students, with CPS workers, with social workers, because I have that connection. I'm ready to bring that to the Capitol and use what I know to improve things in a comprehensive way, not just one here and one there that looks good on paper, but really is ineffective. We need comprehensive care here.
Yes, absolutely. And Debbie, what about you?
Sorry, my dogs were barking in the background there. I had to mute myself. I got into this because over the last many years here, I have been doing all kinds of community service work in my area through the local Ruritan and the schools. And I've been on the local school improvement council for 2 schools here. So I'm very involved with the teachers and going on. I have an 11-year-old daughter. So I too want to make sure that our state moves in the right direction, because I'm tired of us being on the bottom of the lists for so many things. We need so many improvements, and we just keep leaving it up to the good old boys. Everybody just keeps voting for the same kind of people all the time, and nothing ever changes. So that's why I joined this race, and that's what I hope to accomplish, is to move us forward instead of just dredging in the same direction all the time.
Bravo, bravo. I want to go back to what Nikki said, and I want to open that up for conversation. So I'm going to unmute you, Nikki. We've had some background noise, so I've got folks muted. Nikki, let's talk about the opioid addiction, and then we'll definitely want to hear from Delegate Flashauer, Susan, and Debbie about the issues related to opioid. And I know some people say it's time to stop talking about it and move forward. We can't move forward. And tell us how it's impacted from your perspective as a teacher. I know that in Cottageville or Ravenswood, one of those 2 elementary schools, a few years ago, not a single child was living with their parents in kindergarten. Not a single child was living with their parents. And so they had partnered with Castellium and some others to do mentoring, but also to provide winter coats and food and just the basic necessities for these kids. So from your perspective, talk to us about what you see and what your vision is, say, in 10 years.
Well, what I've seen is that there isn't a person I know, student or otherwise, who has not been affected by this crisis. And here in Kanawha County, 54% of our families are grand families, and that is a family whose children are being raised by one or both grandparents. And actual parents really. And what I think moving forward, linear, this.
We're losing you, Nikki.
Oh,
I tell you what, we're going to go to Susan real quick, and I think she can pick up where you left off. And then once we see that you're not so pixelated, we'll go back to you. Susan, do you want to pick that ball up and run with it?
Sure. One of the things that bothers me about this, and of course, the whole situation, the underlying condition bothers me, is that children are treated differently and children have different access to services based on how they come into the court system. There are families that come into the court system through family court because a grandparent or a relative has filed a petition to obtain guardianship for this child because the parent is unable to care for the child because of addiction sometimes. But there are other children who come into the system because DHHR has filed an abuse and neglect petition. And they are in front of a circuit judge. They're not in family court. Those children tend to receive more services and have more services available to them than do the children who come into family court on a guardianship petition. Now, years ago, the West Virginia Supreme Court put together a group of stakeholders, and they had what they called a Futures Commission. And one of the things that the Futures Commission talked about was how all children who are within the court system need to be treated the same. And one of the ideas that they came up with was to have a family court. Well, we've got a family court. But when the legislation was passed to create the family court, and then it became a constitutional amendment, they left out the part where family court would take care of abuse and neglect. So we still have this sort of bifurcated system where some of the kids come in one way, some kids come in another way, and then there's yet a third group of children that come in through juvenile petitions, and so they're in juvenile court. So one of the things that I would like to see is for the legislature and the court system and stakeholders from substance abuse treatment and recovery programs and recovering addicts themselves to get together and talk about what kind of changes they would like to see in the court system. Judge Thompson in Boone County is doing some fabulous work with what they call family treatment courts. And in those situations, the judge and the people who are working in the court system really get in there and try to make a very aggressive plan to either keep the children in the home or get them back into the home as quickly as possible. And they're showing some great results. And I know Judge Thompson's getting ready to have a graduation ceremony. So it would be wonderful if we could have these treatment programs around the state. This is like a drug court, but different because it has a slightly different focus. They're trying to keep the people off drugs, but they're also trying to keep the family together or get it back together just as quickly as possible.
that's really important to me because I don't see them as addicts. I see them as mothers and fathers, and I've experienced what it's like for our students in my classroom and in other teachers' classrooms. I've attended lots of meetings about this, and what we need are our families back together, strong. If not just making it, I hope to have them thriving here someday.
Yeah, Before we go to Delegate Fleshauer and Debbie, I'd like to, Vicki, thank you for joining us. Your comment, the stigma with addiction is atrocious for the family and the addict. Even when the addict is sober, they are treated as though they are lesser than, even by medical professionals. And I think you're exactly right. We're making progress. Delegate Fleshauer, do you want to talk about some of the things that have happened in the legislature regarding the issue here in the state of West Virginia, and maybe what you're hoping to see on the agenda for the next legislative session?
Well, what I'm hoping to see is Susan Perry in the legislature. I want Susan to be on the Judiciary Committee with me, and I want Nikki to be there on the Education Committee and maybe on the Judiciary Committee so she can talk about what it's like to be a teacher and have so many families that have been wrecked or that are doing the very best they can and are working so hard to bring up children who are loved and can succeed. So I'm excited. I mean, I remember I was very excited about the family drug court idea. I think that's a great idea, and I think it's working well. It's in Boone County, right?
It is in Boone County.
Susan. And I just think that I think most legislators who are there are very sensitive to this issue, not totally sure what to do. And that got very much bipartisan support, that was a good solution for families, that we didn't want to be punitive. We wanted to keep families together. I'm interested in hearing, Debbie, what do you think in your district? You have a district that is very different from the South, very different from central Charleston capital area. And how does it feel in your district in terms of families and addiction?
Well, our district is probably very similar to yours in respect to this epidemic, the opioid problem. It affects every type of family. It doesn't matter what social class you are, what race, it doesn't matter. Your neighbors, your kids at school. I mean, it's everywhere. I can't wait to be able to work with these fine ladies and do something to help us all, because this is such a huge, huge, huge problem in our state. We need to get to the bottom of it. We need more help for these addicts. We need to get them back into society and keep a follow-up on these people so they can kick this thing. We just have to do so much more than what we're doing now.
I want to go back to what Susan said earlier, but I do want to point out that Cafe Appalachia, have you guys been to Cafe Appalachia in South Charleston?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So Cheryl Wilson-Laws, who is amazing, and like a Tasmanian devil, woo, she just all over the place. She took over a church, gutted it, and made it a cafe, and people who are recovering start working there. They start volunteering first. They work in the flower gardens and the vegetable produce gardens, and then they work their way up. They go into the actual restaurant, start working there, gain skills, and then they move on to other jobs. And they made the New York Times today. And
Ooh.
I was very fortunate to be with Ariel, the journalist who came down to do the interview, who was amazing, who had a very personal connection to opioid addiction and loss. And it was a real treat to see that this morning and see West Virginia focused on in a positive light. But I want to go back to what you said earlier, Susan, and help me to understand this, because I've heard this and other people have commented to me that there's always a lot of plans in West Virginia, but they kind of sit on a shelf and the plans are never really implemented. We saw that with the flood of 2016. Apparently there had been a study and a plan done 12 years before that and never implemented, just sat on a shelf. And here it sounds like there was a study done and no one really knew what to do with it. And here we are.
Well, we did set up 4 drug courts, family drug courts.
Yes, and that's true. That is true. Which, by the way, Judge Thompson, if you're not aware, look him up. He's made NBC News. He is doing some phenomenal things, and everyone in drug court is doing great things. I just happen to know Judge Thompson personally. But I'd like to, Susan, how would you like to see us go about moving some of those other initiatives forward? And not just, I don't want to see, in 10 years, are we still going to be waiting for some of those things to be implemented?
I think now would be a great time for us to take a new look at that old report because there are things in it that were implemented. There were things in it that I would say are partially implemented. For example, this report was done before there were family courts, and so the family courts were created, but their jurisdiction was limited instead of made more broad like the report recommended. So, and there's probably other things in the report that didn't get implemented that I've forgotten about. It's been so long ago. But now would be a great time to do that. And that was a really great initiative because it included people from agencies, from the legislature, from the court system, and all kinds of outside stakeholders. And so we really need that same process again to look at this and say, okay, are we serving these children well? It might be a children's summit, but are we serving these children well? Is it okay that kids who come in through this door are not served in the same way as children who come in through the other door? And so we need to get that straightened out. And let me just throw a plug in here for this. We have this exact problem with our social service agencies because when someone is unemployed, as many West Virginians have been during this pandemic, we have them going to multiple offices just to receive the services that they need. They need to apply for unemployment. They need to apply for food stamps. They need to apply for a medical card. They may need a TANF assistance at some point. And they have to keep going in through all these other doors in order to get these things. And so West Virginia also needs to look at that concept too. And instead of having people go through 4 doors to get what they need to go through 1 door. There needs to be an agency, a one-stop shop where they can go in and get those economic services that they need in order for their family not to fall through the cracks.
Yeah, it seems to me in today with technology, with algorithms, with artificial intelligence, augmented reality, all of the different things that we are seeing happening, especially I'll say algorithms, it may apply more so here, that if, let's say someone goes online, for instance, when Natalie Tennant implemented the One Stop for Business, you go in and it takes you everywhere you need to go. But if you go to a website and you say you're unemployed and you fill in a few of these boxes, I don't understand how we can't have a system that then says, okay, well, here's all the things that you need to, do, that makes it an automated, coordinated process, for lack of a better way of saying it. So I completely agree. Let's talk about.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
We're talking about recovery. And Nikki, have you recovered?
Oh, I'm on the mend.
You're on the mend?
I'm on the mend.
So what I'm talking about is Nikki had right in the middle of the roughest part of the campaign, Nikki got appendicitis and had to be transported out of state. Tell us how you're doing.
Well, it was so annoying because I had so many plans that day. I had laptop up. I went to school. I made it through first period almost. And about 5 minutes before the bell rang, I told my seniors, please, you know, here are the alcohol wipes, clean your desks, and I need to go see the nurse. Well, she didn't think it was appendicitis, but she wasn't feeling like I was, but she did take my temperature. So I decided, okay, I'll get coverage and all that. And I drove myself to urgent care because I know the importance in PEIA of having a reference, a referral. And so I got a referral to the ER and I drove myself there. I was trying my best to avoid an ambulance ride because that's expensive. And I'm a single mom, teacher, so you do the math. So I ended up being shipped out because there were no rooms in Charleston or Huntington or the surrounding areas. So I ended up taking an ambulance ride anyway to Pikeville, Kentucky.
So how could that be that there were no rooms? Is it because of COVID? Or
They didn't explain to me why, and I really didn't care at the
right. You wanted to get, but I know, but isn't that weird that there are no rooms?
There were no rooms. It's a little scary to me, considering that we're being told right now that COVID is, it's at a minimum in West Virginia compared to other states, but considering that there were no rooms for something as simple.
Oh, that is, we have had, that is not accurate. There's a really big difference between the Harvard map and between the West Virginia map.
I agree with you.
Virginia map is all green.
True, especially with that curious how of that is difficult. It's a care.
Well, we're losing you, Nikki.
Yeah, you're freezing on us. Well, anyway, I'm glad to hear a little bit more about your situation and that you're healing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Can't afford to lose a mountain mama, and it's good to see you out and about.
And let's welcome Kat Ferguson. Hello, Kat.
Hi. Hello, everybody.
How is your campaign going?
It's still going. It's still going. In this last little crunch period, I am just going to say thank you to all the ladies on this live right now, the ones behind the scenes as well, and the ones that are here in spirit. I certainly would not have gotten through it without you all and your encouragement and your wisdom and just your faithfulness and your stalwартness. And everything has just been really, really great. And I just appreciate it. It's the last hurrah, and I could not miss. I'm sure we'll have one maybe next Tuesday, but I just could not miss our last before election Mountain Mamas Monday. I haven't missed too many, but I couldn't let it go by. I had to be here. So thanks for having me.
Glad you're here. I do want to go back real quick. So Purdue Pharma made a huge settlement, and I guess there were some pleas made regarding is it OxyContin, I believe, correct?
Yes.
And I believe it was 255 million. Do I have that right?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
That seems pretty
Yeah.
low to anybody else besides me.
It's very low.
I mean, I could see 255 million for one state. But
They're not going to pay. They're not going to pay. I don't think anybody's ever settled anything in the billions as they should. Personally.
Well, I just think that it's going to cost us at a minimum $250 million over the next generation, as Nikki and Susan and everyone has pointed out. And Debbie, I want to get your perspective here in a second. And go back to what Vicki said here. has any thought been given into turning closed hospitals into long-term treatment? It would provide a much-needed service and bring jobs to West Virginia. I think that Vicki, and again, ladies, and Debbie, I'll start with you. I think the biggest issue is the staff capacity. I don't know that we have the staff capacity at this point to man those, let's just say we were to do that. I'm not sure that we have enough people to actually do it. That's the sense I'm getting in talking with various people is even if we did it, we don't have enough people to manage the treatment centers. And I know, we talked about Cheryl Laws recently with Cafe Appalachia. They opened a recovery center at the old Rock Lake Pool and turned that facility into a recovery place for women. And so there are places happening. There's some nonprofits. So I don't know. Debbie, you mentioned earlier working with youth and seeing the impact of opioids on youth and on families. Talk to us from your perspective, what you've heard and what you're seeing, and suggestions from what you're hearing from people you talk to.
Let me see here. Okay. Well, everybody is pretty much arms up in the air too, because they don't really know what to do. I mean, this is the worst thing that we've ever been through as far as that goes. A lot of people have thrown the idea of legalized marijuana being a less dangerous choice, and perhaps some of them could wean off onto something that's not as dangerous, and no one's ever died from an overdose of smoking marijuana. So
not to my knowledge.
Yeah. So I mean, that is definitely an idea. And like you said, staffing these facilities that we desperately do need. It's just something we're going to have to work on. We need to find some way to bring help to all these people. Families are struggling every day. It's everywhere. I mean, just 2 days ago, we had an overdose just down the road from us. So, I mean, it's every day and everywhere.
It is. And I'm not sure who mentioned it earlier about there is no socioeconomic discrimination when it comes to drug use. I have a family member who is actually a convicted felon, and this was 30 some years ago from drug use, and was the only one that was caught that didn't get prison. So he was very fortunate, but came from a great family, kind of a middle class income family, and you just wouldn't imagine it's not the stereotypical face you would apply to someone who's a drug user. And we all remember Jessie Grubb, who was a beloved daughter and sister, and who lost her life while in treatment due to just a slight error in her care. So, and we've seen in Charleston, and it's the saddest thing ever when we're seeing people, and the first thing, and let me just be the first to admit this. 10 years ago, I would have railed on people who were addicted. I would have called them lazy. I would have called them, problematic. I would have not been kind. But now that I know the issues surrounding addiction, when I see someone, I'm not automatically judgmental. I'm automatically thinking, how did they get here, and how do we get them to move forward in life? So I think West Virginia, and I'll say this directly, it's not our job to judge. That is not our role. Our role is to problem solve and bring them back into the fold of the West Virginia family. That's it. Whatever that is, that's our role. And I think with women, more women representing the West Virginia, various areas from West Virginia, I'm hoping that we're going to have a better opportunity of doing that. And these women are amazing, and the empathy and the understanding of the issues, hands down, these ladies know what's going on, and they're already problem solving. They're already looking forward to, what can they do? Let's, unless anybody has any objections, let's move on to voting. I do want to share my screen here real quick. And we're going to talk about dates, even though we're, pretty much down to the wire here. There we are. Early voting has begun. Last day to request an absentee ballot is 2 days from today, so on Wednesday. Last day of early voting is the 31st of Halloween, which is Halloween, of course. And then Election Day, November 3rd. 1 week out, folks. So if you haven't voted yet and you want to vote early, better get there before the end of this week, because otherwise you can go to the polls. Nothing wrong with going on Election Day at all. But if you do want to vote early, or you want to get that absentee ballot in, act quickly. Has anybody? Go ahead.
I'm wondering. I just heard from a friend of mine who's a poll worker, and at our early voting locations, and we're really lucky. We have 4,000 people a day, and I heard that in Jefferson County that they had really long lines. What's going on with you in your area, Debbie? Have you heard anything about how many people are early voting, or Nikki, or Kathy, or Susan?
In my area, it's been averaging about a 2-hour line.
Oh my goodness! Really?
So that's
Are
good.
they social distancing?
Yes, they are. They are.
Oh, that's good.
So they're wrapped all the way around the street.
Wow.
My people have
So
told me it's
Democrats and Republicans?
It's well, as far as early voting went, that was mostly Democrats. Saturday, as of Saturday, the totals that they had in as far as coming in and voting in person, they were Saturdays. It was about 50-50 as far
Or
as
even.
Democrats and Republicans.
So it was more Democrats and absentee.
Yes,
If I
Democrats
could,
were mostly absentee.
let me jump in here real quick and share the numbers. And this was an hour ago. So far, 228,579 West Virginians have voted either absentee or early here in the Mountain State. 107,067 Democrats, 35,953 no party affiliation, 76,733 Republicans, and 8,826 other.
Wow.
I think we're going to see historic voting levels, ladies.
Yes, it sounds like it. That's
I
amazing.
heard one report that said nationwide that it was only going to be, or that it was going to be the largest turnout since 1908.
Wow.
That's what I heard.
That's
Do we have
amazing.
somebody else that wants to come in, Sarah?
I don't see anybody, no.
Oh, okay.
I know Cindy was trying to get on, but was not able to. And then I'm trying to think of who else was having internet problems, but I can't think of that off the top of my head. But, our stellar internet service, once again, comes to the forefront. I know that was a discussion on hand today during the governor's briefing, was broadband. And once again, it was just it was like handed off. I just didn't get it. I really don't understand that. But here we are. We're in the final stretch, and we just can't encourage people to vote enough. And you got to get out there and vote. Okay, so Cindy is listening and learning. Okay, and Cindy, if you have anything that you want to add, because again, your internet is poor, And I'm really sorry about that. Feel free to make a comment, Cindy, and we will be happy to include that and share it with everybody. And that's Cindy Welch, folks, candidate Cindy Welch, Mountain Mama. She's in
And what Doddridge County?
Doddridge and Tyler County, correct. So feel free, candidate Cindy Welch, to add some comments if you wish. And again, she's in Doddridge and Tyler counties. What else do you guys want to talk about tonight, since we have some time and maybe
I wanted to talk about what Debbie mentioned earlier about the legalization of marijuana and how that could affect the opioid crisis. Marijuana has often been called the gateway drug, but I think it is the gateway because we place the gateway exactly where it is with the laws against it by criminalizing, well, it's prohibition. That's what it is. And what happened with prohibition of alcohol is the same thing that's happening with marijuana these days. That prohibition has put it into the hands of, well, gangsters, and basically keeping it in the shadowy parts of society. And for people to partake of it, they have to go to those shadowy parts, don't they? And what they in proximity.
there's another example of our stellar internet, Nikki. You're
Sorry.
chopping away.
I think the into drugs.
Nikki, we're gonna hold off there because you're still real choppy there. But I think what you're saying is that try it now, Nikki. See if it'll.
It could be a gateway out of addiction. That's the way I feel about it. That's what I've seen in other people. And I'm not going to mince words. People in West Virginia partake of marijuana, but the means that they had to go through in order to obtain it, well, they're nefarious, So I think that we can switch that around by ending prohibition and putting it into good use, not only bringing people away from those shadowy aspects of society, but also to increase our revenue and to fund the facilities that we mentioned earlier that could be treatments for families and for people in recovery.
I'm gonna sneak out, but I do want to say that how furious I am that some of our fellow legislators have blocked implementation of the medical marijuana. We passed it several years ago, and we just can't seem. It's finally getting started, and that's a good thing. But I think we have to really, just like COVID, we have to listen to the research. We need to make sure that we're and just like vaping and just like cigarettes, this is not good for kids. So as much as I agree with you, Nikki, I think that we need to move forward, especially with medical marijuana and also with legalization. We need to make sure that children with developing brains are not, that we're not allowing them to have it. And assuming that's what the science says, which I think it is. But otherwise, it's an opportunity. And if we drag our feet, we'll be the last state to do this, and we'll miss out on.
And the revenue will be gone. It'll be.
Yeah. Well, yeah, everyone will have already established. Oh, I'll go to Ohio. I'll go to Kentucky. I'll wherever.
Right, it's right across the border right now in Pennsylvania. It's like 3 miles away from me.
Exactly.
I think if we had all the women who are on this broadcast tonight, we would be better off in terms of making West Virginia better and having revenue sources, not putting people in jail. So that is my plea, is please vote for these women, and we could have more company in the House of Delegates. We have the lowest percentage in the whole country. So elect these women. I need company. So anyway, I'm going to go work on dinner. Love you all, and my fingers are crossed.
Thank you so much, Delegate Flashauer. Always so good to have you on with us.
Oh, thank you,
Each
Sarah. And
Monday,
you're doing a wonderful job. Thanks for being a great moderator.
Well, thanks so much. I'm dragging a little bit today, but we're going to keep plugging along.
Well, you're faking it really good.
Well, good. That's good. So Nikki, I love that you've opened up that conversation. And I do want to add, if I could, just a little bit, you know, obviously with any given situation, it fascinates me that Big Pharma is making so much money off synthetic medications. And here we have, and I'll be honest, pot is not my thing. I'm allergic to alcohol. I'm just a stick in the mud no matter how you look at it. But CBD keeps me from having seizures. CBD helps children not have seizures. CBD can help children with anxiety with no adverse effects. And so I think that we need to give greater nod to science and the fact that this is salt of the earth, so to speak.
Well, Sarah, interestingly enough, and to Nikki's point, I mean, she was talking about it being a gateway or possible gateway, but the statistics and the studies say that actually smoking cigarettes is the main introduction to folks going down the path of drug use. I mean, that's just what it is. So it's not necessarily just the marijuana. And the reality is, to Barbara's point, we want to make sure that kids don't have access to it, but we certainly want them not to have access to alcohol. So there are things that
cigarettes.
Yes, or cigarettes. So there are policies, there are procedures in place to keep that from happening. Does it mean that kids are going to listen to that? No. Does it mean that kids are listening to that now? No. That's just the reality. Again, it was never my thing, but I learned 20 years after the fact that all my friends were doing it behind my back because I was the stick in the mud. I was like the thing. But it's been happening. And so, but I think, in terms of the use of it, yes, I mean, it can certainly be something that's used as an alternative to opioids and that type of thing. But more than that, I think that we really, we've talked about this, right? It's probably one of the first Zooms that we've talked about, and we've brought it up in a series of discussions, but really looking at the preventative pieces and really why do people skew towards opioids in the first place, and understanding that there's a lot of trauma, there's sexual abuse, there's neglect, we talked about the ACEs and those type of things, and also too, helplessness and hopelessness because of no jobs and idleness and time, on people's hands. So I think if we can course correct some of those type of social ills, that we will effectuate some positive change in the use of opioids. We've got to give people, something to clamor onto in terms of the areas where they're living, in terms of their ability to contribute to society in a meaningful way with livable wages and that type of thing, and have some pride and value in what they're doing. And then also too, helping, to support some recreative things for kids in certain communities where they have other outlets. I was talking to some folks down in my neck of the woods the other day, and there's a pond near, the main area where folks live, and some of the men took some of the young people out to go fishing. Now, they're just catching and releasing, that type of thing, but a police officer came by. They've been doing it for decades, but now that there's something else in that vicinity, they threatened to give them a ticket. And the conversation turned to, there's nothing else here for our kids to do. So if you don't allow us to do this, if you're going to write a ticket for these kids now, then you'll be back in 5 to 10 years and you're going to be locking them up because they don't have anything to do. So let us engage these kids. Let us, work with them. And so these are the type of things that we're dealing with in, communities all over West Virginia. We just really have to do our due diligence. I do believe that women are phenomenal leaders. I think that we understand there's a nurturing component. There's a balance in terms of, laws and policies and how it actually affects the human body and the spirit that we get as just women. I think it's intuitively and instinctively. And I think that we just need more of that kind of, estrogen energy in the legislature to, to really, again, effectuate some positive changes and to course correct. So.
Well stated. I mean, well said. I couldn't agree more. And I don't know how many people out there are actually taking advantage of the fact that CBD is available in the state of West Virginia now. I think if anybody has questions, there's plenty of people they can reach out to and ask those questions. And, we could certainly point them in the right direction as well. I know DL could certainly help facilitate more conversations about that too. And, I was hoping you'd have your hat back on there.
I can get it on. And this is just me, but
Happy Halloween.
The back of my hat. Wait, where's my thing? I can't get it. It says.
Oh,
Ghostbusters?
Trump busters. Okay.
I ain't afraid of no Trump.
But
That's
so
cute.
yes, and I also have a specially ordered Mountain Mama Trick or Treat T-shirt. So I'm just reminding everyone that you can order a Mountain Mama T-shirt still from the website, which is mountainmamawv.org. If you feel like this is such an important election and you really probably should have made a bigger investment in good candidates that you did, there's still time. There's a donation button on Mountain Mama's site, and there are forms where you can contribute to any of the 21 Mountain Mamas, or you can contribute to the PAC, and we work hard for all 21 Mountain Mamas. But I was reminded earlier that I needed to give a thank you to Seth Sturm, who has done a lot of the production work for Mountain Mamas. But Sarah was earlier talking about moving forward, and he made an in-kind donation of a video to every Mountain Mama that reminds your voters and your neighbors and your hopefully voters to fall back on October 31st. So you early vote and you fall back. That all happens on full moon, on a blue moon. Just, put a big red circle on Saturday because it is an auspicious day. And our video has that reminder about falling back, because then it has the thrill that we are going to move forward on Tuesday. And, you either like what's going on, or you are so ready to move forward that you can hardly stand it. And we'll just see where the electorate is. And, it's not just scary because it's Halloween. It is scary because it's scary. But we will be back next Monday night. Hopefully, many Mountain Mamas will come on to say hello. We can wish them well. An election this big happens once in
literally. Well, before we go, let's just take a peek at that at the video that you were talking about, so that people can see what it is. Now, this is just one example.
And it's better with the sound, but that's it.
Did you get? So I don't. Let's see here. I don't understand why the sound won't work. This is the second time this has happened, so I'm not sure. I'm going to have to figure that out. But I digress. Maybe it's because I'm not muted. But Susan, we're gonna.
Okay, well, Holly Gal wishes she could vote.
We're gonna
vote for her.
Oh, I thought that was a real baby for a second. I definitely need my glasses. I was like, whose baby is that?
Well, in closing, why don't we, Susan? Susan, why don't you tell everybody who you are, where you are, and then we'll go to Nikki, Kat, and Debbie. You're
Susan
muted.
Perry. I'm from Logan
Good.
County. No, I'm not.
You're good.
Susan Perry. I'm from Logan County, District 24. And you can find me at Susan for West Virginia 2020 on Facebook.
Wonderful. Nikki.
Nikki Ardman, District 38 for House of Delegates. That is Eastern Putnam County and Western Kanawha County. I'm going to join DL here with the get up.
Oh, I need
I'm
my
ready. I'm ready.
Looking good. Looking good. All right, Debbie.
I'm Debbie Carroll. I'm District 62, which is Northern Berkeley County. And if you want to look me up, I'm at Facebook at Debbie for Delegate, or you can go to my website, which is Debbie, that's DEBI, 4 WV.com.
Wonderful. And Kat.
I know. I just grabbed the hat really quickly. I don't know why I was laying where it was, but anyway, I am Kathy Ferguson. I'm running for the House of Delegates in the 35th District of Kanawha County. I am seeking one of 4 spots there, so you can't go wrong. You can vote for a bunch of folks and me. So just cast your vote and let's move the state forward, this county forward.
And the cowboy hat just reminded me of another
Debbie.
video. Oh, there's another cowboy because there's also a Who Is That Masked Mama with the Lone Ranger. So my hat's off to you all. You've done a great job. I'll see you next Monday. And
And Susan gets the tiara. Susan gets the
messaging
tiara.
people. I mean, we've got some good videos out there. Some are entertaining, some are informative, and some of them will just inspire you to realize that the more mountain mamas there are in the West Virginia legislature, the better off we are. I promise you, these women will move West Virginia forward.
These mamas will move mountains.
Yes. All right, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, again, thank you for those who have tuned in on the live stream and for those who have joined on the replay. If you want to reach out to any of these folks, go to mountainmamaswv.org, correct, DL?
Yes, mountainmamawv.org.
Mountainmama.wv.org. We'll put it in the comments. All right, everyone. We will see you next week. Get
luck,
out there
everybody.
and vote.
Election Eve.